You're all I ever wanted. You're all I ever needed. Yeah. So tell me what to do now. 'Cause I want you back.
When I saw that clip of Elizabeth Warren, I didn't know which to laugh at more: Jagme and Trudeau looking lovingly at each other, or Elizabeth Warren who did that. But like I say, every single week, those clips of people that do that online, they're hysterical. See, that's the thing, Joe, as we say all the time here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Thanks for joining us, Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossinello. Let us go into the breeze. See, Joe, we can laugh. I know we have a tendency to get a little heated on this show, not with each other, with all the idiots that we play clips of, okay? But at the end of the day, we can laugh. I'll tell you this, though, okay? In the last couple of weeks, I got a smile on my face ear to ear. Why? Because we're getting everything we want? No, of course not. But I will tell you this. It's like a juggernaut. We're going to show you some clips tonight here at the front line with Joe and Joe. The left that was already evil and unhinged has gone off more on the deep end. They go off on Trump pardoning the January 6ers. You got Chuck Schumer again, Joe. Again, he already called for Supreme Court justices to be harmed. Then he calls that now he's in the street saying he's with Ayanna Pressley and the rest of the horrid crew. Okay. He's talking about taking it to the streets. And nobody wants to arrest them. Is anybody going to arrest them for inciting violence? So you got that. You got people talking, who's who? Who's honest and who's lying in this whole thing that's been going on for the last couple of weeks? Is Elon Musk a liar? I don't think. I think Adam Schiff is a liar, and that's demonstrable. Elon Musk's not a liar. RFK Jr. is not a liar. All right, they're seriously focused. They're not lying about USAID, which we're going to talk about that too. Marco Rubio, Joe Rossinello is impressing me. He's impressing me, and I was skeptical about his appointment initially. Now I hope he doesn't disappoint me, but we're going to talk about him too. I think Danielle Smith is not a liar. We're going to talk about Canada a little bit tonight. Okay. She's not a liar either. So there's a lot of interesting things to talk about tonight. Okay. At the front line with Joe and Joe, but not for nothing, Joe. The clip with Trudeau going like this was.
Oh, dude, it's absurd. It's absurd. Well,
who's the bride? Who's the bride?
That's
Carney?
Mark Carney, who's basically the carpetbagger who the institution is trying to replace Trudeau with. They're basically like trying to just drop him in. He's Trudeau on steroids. He's a globalist through and through. If he gets in by hook or by crook, that's what they want. Canada is done. Canada will turn into like friggin' Guatemala.
Well, here's the thing. You mentioned all the time about El Salvador and those people at some point in El Salvador. Over 80% of the people voted for reform. They voted for their new president. And the same thing's going to happen in Canada. If they get Trudeau's bad enough, if they get Trudeau on steroids, Joe, if they get this guy Carney, because we got a clip that we're going to show you when he talk with the one of the officials in England talk about when he was the head of, wasn't he the head of the Bank of England?
He was the governor of the Bank of England. He was the governor of the Bank of Canada. Then he was the governor of the Bank of England. And this woman is commenting on his tenure in that position. But he is and he also worked at Goldman Sachs. He is absolutely utterly a globalist.
I was just saying, you know how Superman had the S on his shirt? Mark Carney's got the big G on his shirt.
Dude, horrible. He'll destroy. I mean, he'll take it to another level.
Well, listen, this is going to be a great conversation. Remember, if you're watching us here at the front line with Joe and Joe, like, subscribe, share. Please share. Do all that fun stuff. We have a good crowd growing right now in the chat room. So a lot of our regulars are in there right now, and please join in there if you have any comments as we go along. Hey, if you disagree with Joe and Joe, let us know. But well, let's stay with Canada. Let's stay with Canada for a minute.
Look at pipelines in particular. We had $176 billion worth of proposed projects that got canceled because of the uncertainty created by various government laws, the ban on export of bitumen from the West Coast, the No More Pipelines bill, the threats of net zero electricity grid, of an emissions cap on oil, emissions cap on methane, net zero vehicles. The list goes on and on and on. And all of that dampens investment. And we've seen the results of it.
The poster child for the climate hoax, as Trump is rightfully calling it, by the way, withdrew us from the Paris Accords, okay? Called it straight up, said it's nothing but a scam. It's nothing but a hoax. The poster child for what the climate hoax will do to a nation that has energy capability, meaning lots of oil, lots of gas, is Canada. Joe, I'm throwing it over to you.
A couple things with Danielle Smith. Danielle Smith went to Trump's inauguration. Danielle Smith is, for those who know, a lot of our listeners are from Canada. She is the premier of Alberta. Alberta is conservative. So is Saskatchewan. They are also oil rich. If you ask me, when Trump notes about the 51st state, I think he's speaking specifically to that region. Now, obviously, Canadians want to be Canadians. I get it. I completely get it. You have your own identity, and frankly, no one should take that away from you. However, the people of Alberta and Saskatchewan are frustrated with Ottawa. They've had it up to here. Ottawa is bleeding them dry, and there's no reason for it. So while many people who live in Alberta may not want to become American, they're becoming poor, and they're becoming frustrated with Ottawa, which is basically strangling them. And that's what Danielle Smith is talking about there. And I will say this, if Mark Carney becomes your premier, that just might happen because people will be up to here and frustrated. Also, keep this in mind. Trump is very shrewd, and I'm going to be very honest with you. I don't think he's going to be able to deport 12 million people. First of all, politically speaking, it could turn into a loser from an aesthetic perspective. Obviously, the people who were criminals have to go, and that's going to happen. But that may be his only strategy, that he's basically throwing his base a bone. I don't know. I'm talking about reality. To deport 12 million people, I don't think it's humanly possible. So what does he do? He uses the same strategy against the left, which tried to bring in a population to basically increase the Congress footprint and also to get votes. What does he do? He takes on a conservative state in Canada. He takes on Greenland. Instant votes. Conservative votes.
I get it, but here's one thing I want to say to you, Joe. You mentioned the right word. Now, look, I'm American, okay? Obviously, if Kamala Harris succeeded Joe Biden, okay, they're interchangeable. Well, no, they're not interchangeable. Barack Obama was running things. If we had that going on for another 4 to 8 years in Canada, Canada would be, and Canada was more conservative. In other words, if they had like a legit conservative base and they ran their country, like say, according to more what we would call traditionally conservative principles, okay, I'd move. No, I would do it. I have family in Canada. No, I could get along well in Canada. So could you, because they speak English. And if they treated me better than Joe Biden, is my point, or Barack Obama or Kamala Harris or the Democrat Party, okay, then why not? I would say to the people of Alberta, what is the province? Somebody can help me. I didn't look at the map recently. What is the province next to? I don't have the map in here. Next to Alberta.
It's Saskatchewan. Alberta, Saskatchewan. They're right next to each other, and the land.
And they're both and one of them is on the coast.
No, that's what's it called? British Columbia.
British Columbia.
That's
So
not
if those-
part of it. That's
so-
liberal. Alberta is right above Montana,
Okay.
and it's conservative.
And it goes straight up to Alaska.
No, a little bit further south. It's
So
up there.
Without getting into the weeds, what I would say to them very simply is this. I would say to them what Donald Trump said to African Americans in 2016 about voting for him. What do you have to lose? If Justin Trudeau and then his supposed or ostensible successor, Carney, okay, are going to drive that 25% that are below poverty to 50%, what do you have to lose by, quite frankly, rebelling against your government and saying we want to become the 51st state of the United States? Because at least we'll be treated well. And I would say, well, first of all, what you do is, if there doesn't exist already, build a major highway right through the air from the United States through Alberta into Alaska. Make sure travel is easy all the way through. Now Alaska is connected to the to the lower 48, as they say. Okay. Honestly, bring on Alberta. And you could ditch Hawaii. Let Hawaii become its own country, because they're off the deep end anyway out there. That's what I would say.
Well, it's also
And we'll still keep 50 states.
Sylvan in the chat said something interesting, and I was going to bring this up, but he brought it up, and I'm going to bring it up. Trump only was going to tax Alberta on their oil 10%, and the rest of Canada 25%. The tariffs obviously backed down because Trudeau backed down because he secured the border. Danielle Smith supposedly brokered that. My point is, that's what tipped his hat to me. I think he's interested in just those two provinces, Saskatchewan, Alberta. If that ever happened, as far as land mass goes, as far as oil production goes, Joe, I'm going to tell you right now, they'd give Texas a run. They would.
Well, hey,
That's
listen,
a massive piece of land, oil rich. And if it was uninhibited, tapped to the full, it would be a wealthy, wealthy region of the United States of America, a conservative region of the United States of America, and it would give us political capital, the exact strategy they tried to do by bringing people through the southern border.
Well, no, exactly. And you know what else we do? And then shame on any American politician who buys one drop of oil from the Middle East. Now, I don't know.
You wouldn't have to.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's Joe. Let me put on my real cynical hat for a second. Okay, when we're energy independent, when we don't have to worry about oil from the Middle East, when we could keep it insular. I know oil's a global market. I get it. All the economic heads out there are saying, well, the system doesn't work that way. But my attitude is, if in the Middle East they want to kill each other, they kill each other and don't come near us. Okay, we don't care what you do in Saudi Arabia. We don't care what you do in Qatar. We don't care. Now, I don't feel that way. But America as a nation could say, we're not helping you at all. And you know what? Financially speaking, economically speaking, we don't have to. All right. You want to do business with us is fine. You're going to stop killing each other. We're going to talk about Gaza.
Yeah, we're going to get to it, Mary. Absolutely. Mary's in chat. She's talking. We have a good clip on that.
Yeah, we're gonna. But then again, you got to remember, we're talking about Canada. We're talking about Trudeau. We're talking about Jagmeet. We're talking about Carney. We're talking about liars.
The dynamic is much more like the corrupt versus the not corrupt, liars versus honesty. That's the dynamic much more than it is left versus right. And when it really matters, okay, and it comes down to it, and somebody like Bobby Kennedy is a threat to power, and you see quite literally here, the powerful coalescing around keeping this threat to power out, right? The senators keeping out the dissident potential health department secretary. When it matters, where's Bernie Sanders? He's on the side of power, being a fucking blowhard, giving this bullshit speech, trying to make Bobby Kennedy look bad. That's where Bernie Sanders falls down when it matters, as always. As always. The guy LARPs as a representative of the people. And whenever it comes down to it, when it really matters, he falls in line with power. Just like when he endorsed Hillary Clinton at the DNC in 2016. You know, he had this huge movement, this mass movement of people who hated big banks and hated the billionaire class rigging the system in their favor and hated the forever wars. And he got them to support Hillary Rodham Clinton. You know, the person who gives speeches for $500,000 to big bankers and tells them in those speeches, don't worry about what I'm saying publicly. I say one thing publicly, but I say a different thing privately to you. Now, in that moment, when it really mattered, look at what the Libertarian Party just did with Donald Trump. We got Ross Ulbricht freed because, look, we represented a voting bloc and he wanted to court us, and he knew this was a thing that we wanted. So we were able to get a concession out of him in exchange for our support. You know, like it or no, don't like it, that's politics. Bernie Sanders had tens of millions of Democratic voters in the Democratic primary. And then Hillary Clinton and the DNC cheated him out of it. And this came out.
It goes on from there. But let me talk about liars for a second. I want to bring up 2 points. One that he was making about Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders hates Donald Trump because Bernie Sanders could not do what Donald Trump did. Donald Trump was able to get people who are pro-abortion and pro-life just skirting it enough to vote for him. He got people who are pro-business and pro-worker to vote for him. He brought together a real coalition where there's going to be arguments, Joe. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying for 1 second we should compromise on abortion. Not one. But think about what Donald Trump did. He started a movement, and then he was able to bring it all together, win in 2016, get robbed in 2020, and trounce them in 2024. Bernie Sanders, and with the Republican establishment wanting to destroy him. Now, you could contrast that with Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders with the Democrat establishment that wanted to destroy him, with all these people, millions of people voting for him. And what did he do? He caved. He caved because he couldn't bring it home. And that's why he hates Donald Trump, because Trump was able to bring it home and get all the people he called names on that stage to vote, most of them anyway, with the exception of Kasich, I think, to vote for him, to support him. Bernie Sanders couldn't do that. And Pocahontas crying all of a sudden, and I'll throw it right back to you, Joe, her crying about product liability for vaccine manufacturers when she has no stomach for the pharmaceutical industry at all. But remember, when it comes to vaccines, we all have to get that jab. So she doesn't want us to be protected in terms of being able to sue the companies, okay, to make sure their product is safe, like we do with other drugs. She doesn't want that to happen. So she falls under liar, and Bernie Sanders falls under liar and coward.
Dave Smith there points out something very important. There's been certain positions, cabinet positions, that bring out the powerful versus the people. And the RFK nomination is one of them. Why is that? It's simply about pharmaceutical lobbies. And all of the politicians that were rattling the cage, in my opinion, if you look deep enough, you will find pharmaceutical money going to their campaigns. That is absolutely a fact. Certain people skirted through, like Mark Rubio. Mark Rubio is doing well. I'm not bashing him, but what I'm saying is he has a neocon past. He had an establishment past he went through without a problem. RFK, it has nothing to do with anything but he threatens the pharmaceutical lobby, the agricultural lobby, and the food lobby. And every one of those senators, it has nothing to do with you. Get it through your head, people. This is where people are delusional. They actually think it's about them. It isn't. It's about money. Money is driving that discussion.
Well, that's why they're screeching in the street. We'll show a clip in a little bit. That's why they're screeching in the street. It has nothing to do with the fact. They're
has
talking
to do
about
with power. And I'll talk
well, that's
about
the thing.
that.
They're talking about, Joe, they're using phrases now like we have a constitutional crisis. No, we're taking power away from government, you twit.
It's so foolish and illogical. It's actually, to be honest with you, they're behaving, it's cult behavior. They say the MAGA movement's cultish. No, that's cultish. Because they're at, well, we'll get to that. But I just want to
I want to stay on that a second. Let's make sure we're clear with everybody watching us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, Way in the Breach, Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time. We're going across all platforms tonight. So please, wherever you're watching this, like, subscribe, share. Most importantly, share. do all that fun stuff. Joe, what do people do in a cult? See, a cult usually means you believe in a higher power of some kind. We belong to a cult, but a cult in its proper definition, when you say that we're Roman Catholic, there's a cultus, as they say in Latin, around Jesus Christ. I'll firmly admit that, okay? But people who are in these mindless cults, all right, that don't think for themselves, okay? They look, Joe, they're wild-eyed like this. And they don't like if you or I said to a person like that, yeah, of course I voted for Donald Trump. It'd be like a horror movie, okay? They have a cult. There is a bit of a cult around Donald Trump. He is the figure.
No, in fairness, there's no. I don't belong to it.
Though. But here's the thing: when Trump turned around and tried to push the abortion issue too far, this is the difference between them and us. See, we can put some pressure on Donald Trump. Lila Rose did it, okay? When Trump's language is getting a little bit too conciliatory towards abortion, okay? Lila Rose was on there on social media, okay? And she was putting pressure on Trump. And what did he do? He backtracked. See, our God, and I don't mean God in the proper sense, okay? The way the left uses it, okay? They say Trump is our God, okay? Okay, but here's the thing. He's not our God, but here's the thing. I could question him. You can't question your leaders. You know why? Because you're like this.
Well, you're not allowed to, or you're out.
First, you're not allowed to, but second of all, you've drunk so much Kool-Aid that you actually think men can become women, and there's 178,000 genders. Or in fact, at some point, they're just going to say, this is the logical conclusion to their idiocy. At some point, they're just going to say, well, there's an infinite number of genders. You literally can have any combination you want. It's like chess. After the first few moves, there's an infinite amount of possibilities that you could do after that that could happen in that game. It's the same thing, okay? So I'm okay, fine. I'm in MAGA. I admit it. I'm part of the movement, okay? I have a voice. People listen to what I say and what Joe Resinello says. Others who agree with us put pressure on Donald Trump and the administration if we don't like what they're doing. Okay, we're going to talk about Gaza in a minute. People in the MAGA movement are split on that, I think. Okay, they can't question it, Joe. They can't question it, both because they're not allowed to, and both because their dissonance in their head won't allow them to.
Well, I mean, again, getting back to power versus people, pay attention to the nominees that the powerful truly scrutinized. Tulsi Gabbard. You got Pete. What's his face? His last name?
Pete Hegseth.
Him, because he's going to basically turn over the State Department. He's going to turn it upside down. And Bobby Kennedy. And I'm telling you right now, I've said this many times, this election was simply not about people. It was a threat to the powerful. They are not dumb. They knew what was going to happen. And Donald Trump cannot be controlled. Barack Obama was controlled. Get that through your head, people. Barack Obama, if you look at policy for policy, in many instances did not differ from George Bush on a lot of things. He said a lot of things. Look at the outcomes of his policies. Very similar. These were controlled people, and we can go all the way back probably throughout the 20th century, going all the way back to potentially Woodrow Wilson. This is how the game is played, and Donald Trump is outside of that. And that's what this election was about, and that's what Dave Smith is talking about, and that is what Bernie Sanders talks a good game. I think Bernie Sanders understands the problem, but Bernie Sanders likes his job a lot. And that is what Dave Smith is getting to. When push comes to shove, Bernie Sanders sides with power. When push comes to shove, most of them side with power because they like their job, because they understand how the system really works. And sadly, most Americans don't.
Well, that's what we're going to get to when we talk about USAID. We're going to get to that in a second, and what Marco Rubio had to say. And it's been fun and exciting, really fun and exciting, watching the not only what the Trump administration is doing. He took USAID, put under the State Department, and they had 13,000 workers. I think 12,784 of them were fired.
Yeah, it's going to be 295 employees.
Yeah, so my math was off a little bit. Okay. if one final point on Bernie Sanders, if he was smart, but this is why you listen to the front line with Joe and Joe, because maybe you like our opinions, maybe you think we have a little insight into something. Who knows? Maybe you just like listening to a couple of Italian guys from New Jersey. Maybe that's the case too. Bernie Sanders, if he was smart, Joe Rossinello, he would have understood what Bobby Kennedy understood. The Democrats, at least they had a primary with Bernie Sanders, okay? And then they undermined him because Bernie Sanders was gaining too much steam, and Clyburn arranged Joe Biden to win South Carolina, resurrecting Joe Biden, and they forced Bernie out of the situation. They never gave Robert F. Kennedy Jr. a chance. No Democrat voted for Kamala Harris. Not one Democrat voted for Kamala Harris. That's how much they respect the people and the Democrat process. Democrats would have voted for RFK Jr. hands down over her, number one. Number two, he probably would have beaten Trump. Or it would have been a very close race, okay? Depending on if he was going to buy into all the woke stuff and everything else. But if Bernie was smart, RFK Jr. targeted what's important, most important to RFK Jr., and that is fighting against Big Pharma and Big Agra. And now in his position, correct me, Joe, if I'm wrong, he's been confirmed, right?
Yes.
So he's been confirmed. They're really shaking in their boots now. He's taking the most important issue to him, and he's taking a leadership role in rooting out the corruption, all right, stopping Big Pharma and Big Agra from having their way with both Republicans and Democrats, all right? And if Bernie was smart, he would have taken the one thing that was important to him, I like to think because he calls himself a socialist, maybe worrying about workers, maybe worrying about workers' rights, maybe worrying about wages, Bernie, and driving back illegal immigration so wages could go up. How about that, Bernie? Maybe Trump would have had a place for you. No, because he was a coward. He wanted it all. He thought he was going to win. And then what happened was when they moved him out of the picture, he went and kissed Hillary Clinton's rings. That's the thing about Bernie. That's a difference between a pragmatist and an ideologue. RFK Jr. is a pragmatist. Bernie Sanders is an ideologue. With him, he proved it's either all or nothing, just like the rest of his party, Joe.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I actually think, like I said, he just likes his job too much. If you ask me, I want people in office who will risk not getting their job. That is who I'm interested in. Basically saying the truth, and with this attitude. And if you don't like what I say, don't vote for me. That's who I want running. This is something whereby I have a skill set. I have done something before this. I'm not interested in any career politician, and I am going to put forth my skill set. If you're not interested in it, fine. I'll go back into the private sector and make money. In fact, I'm doing you a favor because I can be making tons of money in the private sector.
It's called public service.
That's exactly right. But that's not what we have. 90% of our politicians on both sides of the aisle are not serving the people.
No.
I invite people, I've said this many times, listen to Tulsi Gabbard talk about a day in the life of being in Congress. All they do is court donors. That's it. And that is a problem. As long as that is going on, you have bullcrap. And that is what we have. And that's why it has to change. It has to fundamentally change, not the Constitution. That has to stay rock solid. And frankly, we got to back up a little bit. We've altered what used to be, i.e., how we elect our Supreme Court justices. Thank a Democrat for that. And it was used against you. That was what's his face from Nevada, that beast.
Oh, Harry Reid.
Oh, horrible.
What a disaster.
He did that to you. And that is what we have to backtrack that.
And they tried to change it back.
Oh, Joe, it's just pathetic. It is just, really I could go on for weeks. But my whole point is the government is no longer about us anymore. And that has to change. And I'm going to be honest with you. I just said this publicly on Facebook today. Dude, Trump's not going to take it far enough. People have a problem with Trump. I get he sometimes talks crazy. So do I. But I'm not the president. I'll be truthful with you. He's not taking it far enough. If you ask me, what we have seen over the decades has been treason. Treason George Bush brought us into a war based on a premise that wasn't true. How many
Right.
people died? I'll give you another thing that George Bush did. He took away your rights, privacy rights. Right now, they could access all your information legally. He did that through the Patriot Act. George Bush, if you ask me, should go to jail. Barack Obama should go to jail. Joe Biden should go to jail. Mayorkas should go to jail. What's his face? The head of the Justice Department with the
Merrick Garland.
jail.
Jail.
And I'm
Orange
not kidding.
jumpsuit, man.
They're treasonous.
Yep.
Jail. What they did to this country. Bill Clinton through his foundation and everything else that man, jail. His wife, jail.
Let's stay on foundations for a second, and we're going to come right back. Let's stay on foundations. Check this out.
Are you currently in charge of USAID? Or are you
I'm the acting director of USAID. I've delegated that authority to someone, but I stay in touch with him. And again, our goal was to go in and align our foreign aid to the national interest. But if you go to mission after mission and embassy after embassy around the world, you will often find that in many cases, USAID is involved in programs that run counter to what we're trying to do in our national strategy with that country or with that region. That cannot continue. USAID is not an independent, non-governmental entity. It is an entity that spends taxpayer dollars, and it needs to spend it, as the statute says, in alignment with the policy directives that they get from the Secretary of State.
This is what
That's
Democrats
okay. I'm
are
just here to
fighting
listen.
save.
This is my
$20 million
motivation.
for Iraqi Sesame Street.
Oh.
$2 million for Moroccan pottery classes.
Mm.
$11 million to tell Vietnam to stop burning trash.
Oh.
$27 million to give gift bags to illegals before we deport them.
Oh.
Millions to help Afghanis
Just
grow
listening to
crops
the
instead
wasted
of
money
opium.
that's
that
being
program
spent,
was such a success
that the
opium
Democrats are
production
mad
doubled.
that we're looking into.
We also gave
just
Afghanistan
listening to it.
$300
Sesame
million
Street
to build
in another
diesel
country.
fuel power plants, but they couldn't use them.
No,
Because
it's
diesel
other
was
crap.
too expensive. $200 million on a dam that was too unsafe to ever be used. We could have used that dam in California.
Cut off.
$250 million
Jesse.
on a road that was never used. We literally built a road to nowhere.
Yeah.
Oh, and we gave Syrians $9 million
Oh,
for humanitarian
good.
aid. But
So
someone messed up and it went to Al Qaeda.
Oh shit.
$1 million for bat research in Wuhan. That
Oh,
equates to
that
$1 million
bat research.
for each dead American. USAID was funding Fashion Week in Paris.
Oh, good for the
France hasn't
elites.
been paying its NATO dues, and we're paying for their Fashion Week. USAID
AOC is so
$40
mad
billion
about
deep
us finding
state
out.
social justice slush fund.
AOC is now that you could say
Mm-hmm.
AOC, Elizabeth Warren, you could go right down the line of prominent Democrats in the House and the Senate. They are mad about us finding out. I'm going to throw this right to you, Joe Rossinello. Let me put it like this to you. The best line I heard over the last week in regards to USAID, I forgot who on the left said it. The American people don't even know what USAID is. Right, you moron. Exactly right. This stuff's coming out because you know that I don't want one penny. Forget about $1 million, $20 million, $30,000, $50 billion. I don't want one penny of my money being spent anymore without me knowing about it. And if I say that and you call me a fascist, then you don't know what the word fascist means. That means you don't know what the word totalitarian means. When you operate in secret and you're mad because now we know about it, because Donald Trump promised us transparency. And by the way, Joe, USAID, we both know and everybody knows out there, this is the tip of the iceberg. This is the beta test for Elon. But Elon Musk, Joe, he knows all about beta testing things like cars and rockets and everything else. This USAID is the beta test for him and the two computer geeks that he's got with him that are looking at all of this. Okay. So let's just be clear. This is the tip of the iceberg. When they start screeching, you know you're on the right track.
Couple points. One, that gentleman was going down the litany with, Jesse Waters on Fox, all the money that was spent. There is no argument. This is an apolitical statement. That is a waste of money and a bad use of money. We have enough problems in America. I could talk simply about New York City, the issues that New Yorkers are facing, a democratic city. That money could be used to help Americans in a democratic city, and it's not. And people are complaining. That's your money, hard-earned money.
Can I give you one? Okay,
Give me 1 sec. And people have no problem. Actually, they have a problem. They're yelling at someone who's identifying a problematic aspect of the government that's apolitical. That is pathetic. I'm going to be honest with you, Joe, and that's cultish behavior on the part of these crazy people, and they are crazy.
Joe,
Number
what
two,
about what you just
one more point, though, that I want to make with this that I think is very important about this, because this Congress is in charge of the budget. That's how our government works. This was operating outside. This was a whole entity. Billions and billions of dollars, funds being moved all over the world outside of the voice of the people in Congress. That, again, is a treasonous behavior. Again, they have subverted the American people. It was a parallel budget going on, a slush fund being moved that had no connection to people who voted. And and people are not offended by that. This is an apolitical issue. Right. And it goes against everything that the country is about. And people are in their own stupid little political identity looking at this myopic view because it's nothing more than their own identity, because it's their own religion. This is a religion to these people, Joe. And this is, Joe, I'll be honest with you, I step back from it. It's the saddest thing I have ever seen in my life. One of the saddest things I've ever seen in my life. Watching people slit their own throat, empowering people who are robbing you.
I can't put it any better. I mean, because all I was going to say was you mentioned USAID spending all this money all over the place, and perhaps we could help out these Democrat cities, which I wouldn't give them a dime of federal money. Not one. Suffer to the point where you have to straighten out your own problem. New York has enough money. California has enough money. Okay. Illinois has enough money. You don't need my money from Arizona. Okay. New Jersey's got enough money. No more federal money for blue cities. But here's the point. What about those poor people in Western North Carolina? What about the poor people in Hawaii? Joe Biden gave him a $700 check. Joe Biden's going to hell for that alone.
Joe, it's sick. This is my point. It's a sickness, Joe. It's a sickness. And you have people, we're going to talk about it, protesting in Washington, D.C. All that's about personal power. It has nothing to do with justice. It has nothing to do with equity. And the politicians that are there are basically the puppet masters, using those people to basically stay in power, continue to rob, continue to cheat. And people are okay with that because they actually think that they're getting something out of it. They ultimately are being used. It's the saddest thing I've ever seen in my entire one of the saddest things I've ever seen ever.
You know what? One thing that Congress could do, okay, that would do, I think, go a long way, or at least I'd like to see where it could go. All the congressional districts in the United States, in every single state, have to be drawn in squares. No more like zigzags, and it looks like a path that leads to hell. In other words, it's like a jigsaw puzzle on a map, and you got a little bit over here and a little bit, because all those districts are gerrymandered. Everything is a square. That means whoever lives there, and you got to go out and get their vote. The problem is you get people like the ones we're about to show you, like Jasmine Crockett, whatever her name is, Ayanna Pressley, okay, and all these people. Joe, they have power. Let's be clear, okay? And Republicans, don't get me wrong, they have their safe districts too. But Ayanna Pressley's in a safe district. So is Jasmine Crockett. They're not going anywhere. They could say or do, Rashida Tlaib, they could say or do whatever they want, regardless of how outrageous what they are saying and what they are doing actually
agitating. We will see you in the courts, in Congress, in the streets. Elon Musk is a Nazi nutball baby. A godless, lawless billionaire who no one elected. Elon, this is the American people. This is not your trashy Cybertruck that you can just dismantle, pick apart, and sell the pieces of. And I want to say, Republicans, that we will not take this. We will fight back. Fight back. Fight back. And as I close out, because I know we've been out here for a long time, and goddamn it, shut down the Senate. We are at war. Anytime a person can pay $250 million into a campaign and they be given full access to the Department of Treasury of the United States of America, we are at war. Thank you.
So after Chuck Schumer, Jamie Raskin, and a bunch of other House and Senate Democrats spent their evening riling up a crowd outside the White House complex near the Treasury Department, the crowd's now moved up to directly behind the White House fence line. Chuck Schumer and them knew exactly what they were doing. It's disgusting. How do they call Republicans insurrectionists when they literally spent their evening riling up a free Palestine, arrest Elon Musk, and keep open borders crowd? As I said, they were near the Treasury side of the White House complex. Now they're moved to the back end of the White House complex. As you can see behind me, there's a lot of law enforcement, so hopefully this stays peaceful. Pray for the law enforcement. They have a lot of work to do tonight. And shit.
I'm going to say this because I just want to throw it over to you.
Here we go.
Chuck Schumer needs to be thrown out of the United States.
Oh, that's a fact. That's a fact.
If Rand Paul and Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, I was about to call him Tom Cruise, and Ted Cruz and Mike Lee could do something to rattle his cage and get some support. I'm going to say this. I've said it before at the front line with Joe and Joe. About him. He threatened 2 Supreme Court justices on the steps of the Supreme Court. He incited violence against them, said they will reap the whirlwind and you won't know what hit you. A guy was arrested with equipment that was intent to kidnap and murder, another human being on Brett Kavanaugh's block, and nobody did it. Oh, his big excuse was, I'm from Brooklyn. That's the way we talk. I'm from Newark. You'll get punched in the face, Chuck. Okay? But I don't want to punch you in the face. I want you thrown out of the United States Senate. Because now what you're doing is exactly what you and all your idiot colleagues said about the people that walked into the Capitol on January 6th. In the meantime, those people were not inciting violence. They were incited by the FBI. We know that now. That's a stone cold fact, all right, that you had agents on the ground. That Nancy Pelosi refused 10,000 troops. Muriel Bowser was complicit in that. The Capitol Police were complicit in that. The FBI was complicit in that. Those people walked through the chamber and they got sent to jail. You're out there inciting violence and you think you're going to just stand up on the Senate floor and spew your bullshit? Joe, he needs to go. He needs to get the Republicans, if it's nothing but a symbolic gesture, need to move on the Republican side to remove Charles Schumer from the United States Senate.
Couple points. One, what they're doing is empowering Donald Trump. It was tried. It did not work. People are fed up with it. The more they do that, the more Trump gains power. That's point one. Point two, Elon Musk is an advisor to the president. The president, the head of the executive branch, is examining organizations under his purview, and everything Elon Musk is doing is legal. I do have a problem with giving money, though. I'll give you that. I don't want any money. That we'll agree. But here's where you're hypocritical. What about George Soros? What about Zuckerberg? You're now complaining about money giving to the government. And I have a problem with that too. We agree there. Amazing. Where was your voice when that was going on? Dead silence. They're actually making Donald Trump stronger because people are fed up with that nonsense. Fed up. And they're arguing a point, frankly, that's about power and it's not about equity. A lot of those people are upset about DEI. DEI is not about equity. DEI is about power. It's a power grab. I am for equity. I want to hire everybody who's qualified. I don't care if you're Jewish. I don't care if you're Catholic. I don't care if you're an atheist. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're Hispanic. I don't care if you're Asian. Everyone is equal. All resumes are equal. That is not what they want. DEI gives an unfair advantage to X, Y, or Z over A, B, or C. And that is not equity. And I will never be for that. And that is why they're bitching, because they want power and they don't care that Elon Musk is exposing fraud. He's exposing fraud. And they're complaining about that. Why? Because it's threatening their power. What does that say? Let's break that down without saying what they're saying. I don't care about you. I care about me. I don't care about equity. I care about me. I don't care about the process. I care about me.
Well, if they really cared about the American people, let me ask you a question, Joe Rossinello. From my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, Elon Musk has access to payments that are made by the Treasury Department. Am I wrong about that?
Correct.
Okay. That means he could see with his own genius eyes, all right, and his computer geeks that he's got with him, they could see every check that the Treasury Department is writing. Correct?
Correct.
What's the problem?
But it's perfectly legal. There is no problem. All presidents have advisors. They're looking at organizations under the executive branch. If you have a problem, take them to court. You have no legal rights.
They'll lose. They'll lose.
No kidding. It's all a smokescreen. And sadly, people buy it because they listen to the mainstream media and they eat it up. It's pathetic, Joe.
How about those people? That one woman that was like the fat one that was yelling. She's from Newark.
Yeah, she's from Orange. And here's
Newark
another thing.
Orange.
That is, listen, when you start using terms like Nazi and go to war, I'll be honest with you. That's why Donald Trump got shot, is because of terms like that. And I'll be truthful with you. It's over the top. I'm sick of it. And I think a lot of people are sick of it. And I'm going to tell you this. If you hurt people, you want to stop the city, it's very simple. You're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Right.
And show up the next day, you're going to jail again. You want to protest peacefully? Herschel Walker said it best. It's 9 to 5. Get your permit, stay within the lines, say whatever you want, and then drag your ass home. You hurt somebody, you break things, you're going to jail.
Right.
And I'm not apologizing for it, and nor should anyone ever. And this is where that's insurrection. That and when you have governors or you have the governor of New Jersey saying he's harboring an illegal in his house, arrest the person. Go right into his house and arrest him. You get in the way, you get arrested. Because you're breaking the law. You are not above the law. And here's the thing. Civil disobedience means you go to jail because you believe it's an unjust law. You're free to do that. Yeah. But you are not free to act outside of the law. And if you do, you go to jail, no matter who you are. And this is where we can't get out of our own way. It's like The answer is simply no. I'm not entertaining your stupidity and nonsense. You are not getting in the way of basically people who are being defrauded of their hard-earned money because you believe that you're losing some power on something that was frankly unjust from the start.
Right.
Too damn bad. And if you want to protest, have at it. If you want to have a better argument, bring it to Congress or the Senate. And if you lose in the Congress or the Senate, sit the F down.
That's right. Sit down. Sit down. You know who's not taking any nonsense? First of all, they try to do that in D.C. Donald Trump doesn't have to ask Nancy Pelosi for anything. He could call out the National Guard himself. All right. And if they want to start burning down buildings this time around, they better watch their butt. Okay. The other thing is Tom Homan has already said, if you're a governor or a mayor and you get in my way of arresting people who are here illegally, all right, then we're gonna arrest you. We're going to arrest you because, as you said, whether you're hiding them in your house or you're not letting federal law enforcement enforce federal law, because that's what they would be doing, enforcing federal law. If you're not allowing them to do that, you go to jail too, because you're obstructing justice. And that's just the way it is. So let's pivot, okay? Because Joe, reactions like Ayanna Pressley and what's her name from Newark and the rest of them is priceless. And you know what? It's really going to get more and more fun. It's already fun and always has been to do Joe and Joe. It's going to get even more fun as each progressive week goes by. But let's pivot to Gaza. We have a limited time. Let me play you this, and then we're going to come back and talk about it.
Stephen A. and I are scratching our heads saying this can't be right. It doesn't make sense that President Trump said that America is going to have an ownership position in Gaza and do a great job with it, and maybe the people there won't be allowed to come back. Do you think that is going to hold up as legit policy of the United States in that arena?
Well, Chris, it could. I know it makes some common sense to the president to sort of help these people out, get them out of Gaza, rebuild it, and so forth. But to go in there with U.S. troops, it depends on exactly what the rules of engagement are. What are the political conditions? And look, here's some of the things you have to think about. Okay, is Hamas going to be in charge? Do they want the U.S. troops in? Are Gazans going to leave or evacuate part of it? Who's going to take care of them? Who's going to give them food and so forth? If Hamas doesn't want us in, do we just take over the war then that the Israeli Defense Force gave up? What about the Palestinian Authority and Hamas? Is there going to be a war between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas? And if Hamas wants us in, are they going to come up out of the tunnels and say, welcome, we want you Americans to be with us? Or are we going to, what happens when the first sniper kills an American soldier?
No, God forbid.
Have the rules of engagement, going to shoot back? Is it only in self-defense? Or if he sees the guy, about to shoot or identified as hostile, he takes action. What if he runs into a building? What if there's children in the building? Are we going to end up doing the same thing that the Israelis did? So there's so many details of this. But I will tell you this, Chris, the basic concept is a wonderful concept. If we could just bring peace to the region, if we could just rebuild Gaza,
Okay, here's where Wesley Clark is missing the point, I think. And he's a smart guy. I'm not questioning General Clark. Okay, but here's my point, Joe. He's saying if we could bring peace, there hasn't been peace there since before we were born. No, it's like Donald Trump has some grand ideas. I don't begrudge him those ideas. You're not bringing peace to this region, okay? Because there's just too much conflict. Or you could bring peace, but it's not going to entail developing the real estate and turning Gaza and every city in Gaza to look like Tel Aviv. Okay, it's not. It just doesn't seem to be realistic. These people hate each other. All right, and what do you and what he makes a good point. What are you going to do? Is Trump really going to say to these people they can't come back? No, does that make any kind of sense? First of all, nobody else wants them. These poor people, I pray for them because nobody wants them. Okay, they've just been decimated since last October, okay? Whoever's going to be in charge, Hamas, there's going to be no peace. You could build all the shiny new buildings you want, Mr. Trump. In my humble opinion, sorry to question you, because you usually are right about these things, even though it starts out as outrageous. I don't think it's going to work. Peace has been tried there for too long. There's got to be a different solution before you could talk about rebuilding the place. I don't see it.
It's none of our business. And Donald Trump ran on America First. This is not America First. Do you know how much money that will cost? Do you think that these people are just going to roll over? They're not. They didn't roll over with Israel. They're not going to roll over with us. It's going to bring terrorism to our shores. American soldiers will die. It could easily turn into another endless war. Huge error, if you ask me. It's none of our business. Listen, this is almost an unsolvable situation, and I'm going to be very honest with you. If I was a regular Israeli man living in the country, I had a family, I would leave. Because I'm not putting my children and my wife in harm's way. And where I would live, and where's the safest place for good, honest, law-abiding Israelis? New Jersey. Come to Teaneck. You'll get a great job. You'll have a great life. There'll
be a lot of your own people there.
You'll have a beautiful community, and you will be welcomed, and you will thrive. I am just being honest. There is no way, as a father of 5, that I would subject my family to that. It's time to go. I don't have the answer, and I'm not going to pretend like I do. It's almost an unsolvable situation. More reason why America should not be involved there. We have enough problems of our own. This is not America First. It will cost billions and billions of dollars. I have no problem being friends with Israel. I have no problem trying to negotiate peace with the Palestinian people. And in many cases, they have been victimized by their own people who are terrorists, Hamas, versus revenge actions that have gone awry on the side of Israel. I don't have the solution, and frankly, I don't know who does other than God. But I do know this: America should not be there. Stay out, stay home, fix our own problems first. Charity begins at home.
Well, that's what J.D. Vance said recently when he was talking about the hierarchy of love. And there was a big to-do about that all over social media, okay? Because he was talking about, basically he was pulling Thomas Aquinas out of his pocket and saying, there is a hierarchy to love. It was, purely a Christian hierarchy, a Catholic hierarchy. You have to love God first. You love your family. This is an obligation. You love your family. You love your community. You show love to the people around you, your neighborhood, your state, your country, and then you could show love to other people. There is a hierarchy to it. So that's number one. You're right. Donald Trump was not elected to do this, but I will say this. I want to make 2 quick points, and then we're going to move on. 2 quick points. One is Trump said it would cost us no military and no money. I don't know if I'm buying that. Okay,
I'm
not buying it because in as much as he wouldn't want he doesn't want to use American taxpayer money to do it. He'll let private investors go in there and develop the land. All right, but then you still have to have a military presence to put down the terrorists.
And people are going to die. They're not just going to roll over, Joe.
And the other thing, Joe, and I would really like a comment from you on this before we move on, but this is a really practical matter, okay? Tel Aviv is the gayest country in the world. Okay?
City.
Excuse me, the gayest city in the world. It's beautiful, but it is completely gay, okay? And and the reason why I bring that up is this: if you think you're going to make Gaza into a place that looks like Tel Aviv or Nikki Beach, where the girls down there walk around half naked, they're right down in Miami. If you think that's what these people, let's call them Muslims because that's what they are, you think that they're going to be happy with that? They already don't like Israel because they think that Israel and the United States export this stuff out to the Muslim world. And quite frankly, we do. Let's be honest. When we talk about U.S. aid and foreign aid and strings attached to foreign money, where we force them to liberalize their abortion laws or their laws on gay marriage or against sodomy, okay? We do it all the time. We've exported those things for decades. Israel does the same thing. If you think you're going to turn Gaza into that, and you think that somehow you're going to have peace, you're really sorely.
Joe, you don't change culture. That's the mistake of America for decades. You can't change culture. That takes generations, and still it's difficult, maybe nearly impossible. People have their own deal, and that's good. We have our own deal, and our country's out of control. This is not a snap your finger, bring in builders and build high rises. It doesn't work that way. And I'm going to tell you right now, people are going to die. Money will be wasted. It's a black hole. Stay away from it. My opinion, I would go nowhere near it. Listen, I'll be your friend, but I'm going to be your friend over here. This is your deal. You fix it up. And here's the thing. I'm going to be honest, and I'm going to say it again. I am a regular person. I have 5 children and a wife. There comes a time in life. My family came from Italy. Why? They couldn't make a living, so they left. My father lived in Newark. Why did he leave? Riots happened, and his family was in danger, so he left. There comes a time when you have to leave a place, even if you don't want to. There is no way, as a father, as a husband, that I would live in either Palestine or Israel. I would leave, and I would go to New Jersey. Come and be my neighbor. I'll live next to you. I have no problem with either of you. It's safe. That's what I would do. It's a disaster. I don't know how it could be solved. America should stay away from it.
I agree with you 1,000%. I think Trump if Trump's saying this, if he's going to try to do something, let's say on the diplomatic front, if he's going to try to be some sort of a peacemaker, if he's going to try to be a deal maker, okay, he wrote the book, The Art of the Deal, and do something like this project and get people to go in there. Okay, if you think that you could get investors to go in there and go and clean the place up and start building it out, and do something that's going to be just for those people that are ostensibly going to be displaced, then go ahead. Not one American soldier, not one American taxpayer dollar, not one. Joe Resinello, we got to end it there. But as always, a great conversation at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe, we've had hundreds of comments in the chat room tonight, and all of our people are in there, and a couple of new ones, and we want to thank you all. Too many to list, but you know who you are. We know who you are, and we are not just saying it. We say we love you, and we so appreciate the support that you give to us. So please, if you're watching this on any social media platform, X, Rumble, Facebook, and YouTube, help Joe and I out. Like, subscribe, and share. Do all that fun stuff. But we're going to leave you. If you want to talk about what Donald Trump's about to do, we're going to leave you with a clip of one of the smartest guys on the planet, economically speaking, when he was alive, Milton Friedman, talking about all the things that Joe and I think Trump is starting to do and is going to continue to do. Now, until next week, Thursday nights, 9:00 Eastern time, remember, our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you next week.
Them or abolish them? Department of Agriculture.
Abolish.
Gone. Department of Commerce.
Abolish.
Gone. Department of Defense.
Keep.
Keep it. Department of Education.
Abolish.
Gone. Energy.
Abolish.
Housing.
Except that energy ties in with the military.
Well, then we shove it under defense.
That's
the little
right.
bit that handles the nuclear,
right, that ought to go under
plutonium
defense.
and so forth goes under defense, but we abolish the rest of it. Health and Human Services?
There is room for some public health activities to prevent contagion, such a thing as, for example.
So you'd keep the National Institutes of Health, say, and the Center for Disease Control down
not
in
the
Atlanta?
National Institute.
Oh, no?
Those are mostly research agencies. No, that's a question of whether the government should be involved in financing research.
And the answer is no.
Well, that's a very complicated issue, and it's not an easy answer with respect to that.
We'll eliminate half of the Department of Health and Human Services?
Like that.
Okay, one half. There we go. Housing and Urban Development?
Out.
Oh, didn't even pause over that one. Department of the Interior?
Oh, well, but Housing and Urban Development has done an enormous amount of harm. My God. If you think of the way in which they've destroyed parts of cities under the rubric of eliminating slums.
Jack Kemp.
You know, you remember Martin Anderson wrote a book on the federal bulldozer describing the effect of the urban development. There have been many more dwelling units torn down in the name of public housing than have been built.
Jack Kemp has proposed selling to the current inhabitants of public housing their unit, their townhouse, their apartment for $1 a piece, and just shifting the ownership to the people who live in it.
If you got rid of the Department of Housing and Urban Development, it would be worth doing that.
All right, done. That's gone. Department of the Interior, your beloved National Park Service.
Well, given the problem there is, you first have to sell off all the land that the government owns. But that's what you should do.
But it could be done pretty quickly.
It could be done. You should do that. There's no reason for the government to own. The government now owns something like 1/3 of all the land in the country.
And that's too much. Should go down to zero.
Should go down to, well, not entirely zero. They ought to own the land on which government buildings are.
Okay, terrific. Department of Justice.
Oh, yes.
Keep that one.
Keep that one.
Labor.
No.
Gone. State.
Keep.
Keep it. Transportation.
Gone.
Gone. The Treasury?
You have to keep it to collect taxes.
All right, collect taxes through the Treasury. Veterans Affairs?
You can regard the Veteran Affairs as a way of paying essentially salaries for services of those who have been in the armed force, but you ought to be able to get rid of it.
You should be able to pay it off.
Pay it off.
Pay off lump sums, perhaps.
That's right.
And just get rid of it. From 14 departments down to
its basic fundamental functions. What are its fundamental functions? Preserve the peace, defend the country.
All right.
Provide a mechanism whereby individuals can adjudicate their disputes. That's the Justice Department. Protect individuals from being coerced by other individuals. The police function.
Right.
And now, this is both the central government and the state and local governments. The police function is primarily local and central.
Right.
And those are the fundamental functions of government, in my opinion.